Welcome to GlitchTube. We're a gaming podcast, and each week we take a deeper look into the art of video games. I'm Christian.
I'm Chris.
And this week we are going into episode number 27 of our wonderful journey here. And we're talking about a topic that's kind of near and dear to our hearts. It is the crux, the everything when it comes to JRPGs, in my opinion, and that is active time battles. It's a very interesting system. It's a very strategic system, and it's one that I absolutely love. There's different flavors of them around for every kind of game, and it's been going on for since the beginning of RPGs, I would imagine. So before we go into this episode, I just want to ask you real quick. I know we've been doing the updates, but we're going to save those for some other episodes, mainly for our Patreon stuff. But I want to ask you, is there anything that you would like to plug right now? Anything that you are enjoying that you just think our audiences would enjoy as well?
Oh, good question. Honestly, I've been so busy this past week. I really haven't been focusing on anything. I have a bunch of stuff like in my like backlog of like say shows to watch, and even like my YouTuber queue is getting ridiculously high.
Yeah.
I can't even think of one right now. I've been so focused on that.
Well, I got a couple real quick, just to
Cool.
kind of dates this episode too as well. But the first episode of the new season of My Hero Academia just came out a couple days ago. So that's really exciting for me, and I'm sure a bunch of you Weeb fans out there. That's really exciting for you guys too.
Speaking of anime,
yeah,
has Promised Neverland season 2 finished like its season yet, or?
I haven't kept up with that one, but I think it's still going.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think that one's almost done. A couple more episodes, and then you should be able to get the whole thing. And another channel that it's been around for a long time, but I feel like I've just started to really get back into it, and I think it has to do with more of like my fitness goals in life. I mean, I'm in my 30s now, and I'm trying to get back into shape, and it's hard to stay motivated. But Juji Mufu, have you heard of him? He is
no.
So he's a bodybuilder, arm wrestler, just all around amazing athlete. Super fun guy, great YouTube videos. He travels the world and gets to work out with like different strongmen and Olympians and rock climbers like Magnus and all that stuff from Norway. It's just really, really fun things to watch. His content is super entertaining, but he's our age, which is crazy to think about. And he has an amazing brand, and his physique is insane. The dude is strong as fuck, but really, really inspirational stuff. And I just want to give a big shout out to the Juji Mufu crew. I know he's going through some stuff right now as far as his company's going with him and his previous partner, Tom, but they're still banging out content. And honestly, I think it's a little bit more inspirational now and a little bit more humble, which I'm really enjoying. So if you haven't checked out Juji Mufu on YouTube, definitely give it a watch, especially if you're trying to get back in shape or you just need that little extra little push or drive, or you just want something entertaining. It's all right there.
Interesting.
All right, so active time battle systems, to the layman who does not know what that is, can you give like a quick little definition of what an active time battle actually is?
So a little history on the beginnings of the ATB, right? I'll call it ATB just to make it a little bit simpler.
It's easier.
Basically, it is where instead of a turn-based combat where you have a minute to pick what you want and let it sit there, you have a little bar that fills up over time. And once the bar fills up, you can make your move, and then you have to wait till it fills back up again. And depending, like if you have wait mode activated or active, the meters won't fill up or the enemies won't be able to attack you if you have it under wait, because then it will wait till you finish picking your command.
Okay, so wait mode, once it's your turn to go, it pauses the whole game, and then you're allowed to make your decisions freely, and then it goes back into the timer mode, basically, once you've made your decision. So time goes back into place. Okay.
I'll kind of go over some of the evolutions of the ATB as well in a little bit. But the it all stemmed from the original turn-based battle system, which was obviously it was an Ultima before Final Fantasy, but when I'm thinking about the ATB right now, I'm mostly talking about Final Fantasies because it's what started it all.
They took it and ran with it. Yeah.
Yeah. The original turn-based battle system was created by Akitoshi Kawazu and Hiroyuki Ito.
Mm-hmm.
And it was used in the first 3 Final Fantasy games, as in like Final Fantasy 3, like the one that was for the DS here, like not Final Fantasy 6. And same with 2. 2 was the original 2. God, I hate how confusing that gets with the original
with
Final
the ports
Fantasies.
And everything. Yeah.
But something interesting about Final Fantasy 2 was that it actually started a system of gameplay that kind of got assisted by the ATB in later games. Okay. It introduced the preemptive, it's called attack formations, right? The classification, but it basically allowed for preemptive strikes and back attacks, which was kind of a way in creating, who goes first, and it would be different, obviously. Mm-hmm. And that didn't really exist in, I think, any RPG before that. They didn't really have back attacks and stuff like that. So it started in 2, and the ATB that we all know and love today basically started in 4. And it was created by Ito. So the one half of the original created turn-based system. And the thing with 4 is that it didn't show the meters in it. Like if you go back and play, you're not going to see the meters, but it was behind the hood, I guess you could say. Okay. We didn't actually see the ATB meters until Final Fantasy V. And that's I don't know about any of you, but for me, I hated the active time battle when I was a kid. I hated how I had to be like quick, think about it. I loved playing it like chess, where I could sit there and be like, mm-hmm. Is this gonna get me killed, or is this gonna work? Right? And obviously I played these games even though I disliked the ATB, but I feel like as it kind of evolved throughout the later Final Fantasies, I started to enjoy it. Mm-hmm. It definitely added that difficulty. Like I feel like with ATB, it is the difficulty setting in an RPG, because if you let it wait, you're safe, right? Even like say if an enemy casts Doom on you, if you have it active, like that ticker goes down even while you're deciding what attack to do. Mm. Whereas under wait mode, that ticker stops. So it lets you think more and kind of cheese your way around it if you can. Mm-hmm. And it's crazy, honestly. Like this is such a weird mechanic coming from a turn-based system. And it actually, the origins of this was from Ito watching a Formula One race.
Really?
So, yeah, he basically was inspired by seeing the cars speeding around each other. Mm-hmm. And he thought that why not have that with characters in the game? So,
I would have thought it would have came from like timed chess, right? Or something like that, where you have a clock. I mean, because that's what I always harken in active time battle systems to, is speed chess, where you have basically, I forgot how long let's say you have a minute to make your decisions, but you stop the clock after you've made your decision, right? So like the faster you move, the more like move sets you can do. So you're having to think really quickly, because as soon as it's your turn, your timer starts. So that's kind of what I hearkened it to, but it's interesting to see that it came from something completely different, like Formula One racing.
Yeah, I honestly thought it was the same as you with chess. I did not think that I never would really combine racing with the thought of that, but thinking about it now, it makes sense because agility and speed makes all the difference in those games. And the higher agility you have, the faster your
Mm,
meter usually fills up.
right. And then the strategy of when do you pit stop and when do you do all that. Huh, that's really interesting. I guess you really
Yeah,
can get influence from anywhere. That's cool.
it's like at first I didn't really believe it, and then once I started really dissecting like Formula One, like how you just have pit stops and all that, I'm like, I can kind of see it now. Like there's so many avenues of it that you can really like put in place of like different moves that you would do in the battle,
Hmm.
and it works. It's a really far stretch, but hey, I mean, if you're working on a project seriously, and I mean, I guess you can find inspiration from anywhere.
Yeah, that's really cool. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so you mentioned in one of the originals, it didn't actually have a bar showing the time progressing, right? And
Hmm.
I feel like that was actually my first uh, like endeavor into active time battles was that game where you don't see time going, and to like my little kid brain, I'm thinking like, why can't I just go? Right? Like it doesn't,
Hmm.
like you're just sitting there kind of waiting, and then all of a sudden it's like, well crap, like I just got hit like 50,000 times, and you're not really understanding what's going on. So I really do appreciate the fact that they added in that time bar so you can actually see time progressing and then see your turn order kind of coming up. Now, like let's say with Final Fantasy 7, right? You still don't see the enemy's turn times coming up, but you kind of get just a general idea of what's going to happen the more you play through, right? But
Hmm.
what I really enjoyed about that system and the addition of the bar itself, it helped out so much to kind of visualize the idea of using like haste or slow on a character,
Oh
because
yeah.
like you visually see that, like they even like for UI experiences they change the colors of the bars so that you can really tell that there has been a change like done to your timing.
Hmm.
So it like that was really cool to see that. And then you like, of course, then you start realizing like, oh, some characters have innately more speed than others, and you start kind of gearing your equipment and your abilities towards that. So like that's, I mean, I really enjoy that system a lot, actually. Active time battles is super fun now for me, but when I was a kid, I hated them because I like you, I just wanted to play chess, and that's what I thought strategy games were. Is like literally just visual chess, but
Hmm.
the addition of the active time battle just felt really, really hard and just difficult because I didn't have time to think, or it gave you the illusion of no time to think. Because even when you're playing the weight system, you can't help but have your heart rate up a little bit while playing. So you want to make decisions quickly, even though the game's literally waiting for you. So it's kind of cool to see how that works out, where like it still tricks you into thinking that you need to just like go go go. So.
Yeah, and I think that another interesting, evolution of it was when in the original Final Fantasy, when you because you would chain their attacks up, right? So you would make the most for each character, and then the
Mm,
battle would play out. And obviously, it wouldn't be in the order that you think it would be; it'd be in different orders.
mm.
The thing that sucked is, say you had all your people attack one person that dies, then all those other attacks for that turn are going to miss. It's going to hit the air. And something with active
Oh,
time battle,
yeah.
it after that it fixed it. You didn't have that problem anymore. It would just attack the next enemy.
That's right. I forgot about that. I hated that so much.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
but I do like that they took that into consideration and just move the attack down the line, right? If that enemy's
Hmm.
gone, then you just hit the next one next to you, and it just makes sense, like from a person standpoint. But that originally that wasn't coded into games, which is crazy to think about.
Yeah, I don't think the original Dragon Warrior had that. Like I feel like Dragon Warrior 3, I know, like, if you missed, it would attack something else. I'm not sure if the older ones had it, but yeah, I always hated that because it's just like, ugh, you could really mess up a turn that way.
Yeah, that's frustrating as hell. So, as far as the evolution of ATBs goes, what has changed over the years? Like, what new additions have come in to make it a little bit more easier for people to visualize, or just some things that you've noticed as far as it's changed in gaming?
So first I'll go over like the changes in Final Fantasy, and then I want to touch on like other games that have like kind of a same style to it, but differently.
Okay.
It's kind of a far stretch, but
No, that's showing the
I
evolution and the growth of it. So I'd say that's on par. Yeah.
I think the first evolution of it was in Final Fantasy VI. They allowed a skipping function to happen, so then that way, like if you didn't want to attack an enemy, say like I don't know,
Oh, like they
if the
added in
enemy,
like defend, right? Which basically,
yeah,
yeah.
and so they added in defend with 6, and then with Final Fantasy VII they added a third mode. So before you had active and wait, and then Final Fantasy VII had recommended, which was kind of a combination of both.
Mm-hmm.
I think like it would still stop like if you had like Doom or like something like that where you would die over time, right?
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, it would be still active. But I think the first like big change was Final Fantasy X-2.
Okay.
It actually allowed chain attacks to deal more damage, and because you're able to move around the battle map, you while still waiting for your meters, right? You could line up back attacks and deal more damage that way. So it allowed you to kind of run around the map more. And I think Final Fantasy 12 had something like that too.
Yeah. You can kind of move around a little bit, but 12 was weird with its active time battle. And
Yeah, the
yeah.
Gambit system never clung on to me. I don't know. I don't know
No.
enough about it because I didn't get too far in it.
Well, and it gave you that illusion of being able to run away from an attack because you could freely move around the map. And so,
Mhm.
like, whenever, like, for people who haven't played Final Fantasy 12, whenever you, let's say, I target an enemy with an attack, you see this, like, line, this basically string connects from you, the
Mhm.
player, to your target, right? And then vice versa. The targets of the enemies, they get a string attached to them. And it kind of gave you this, like, this feel that you could kind of run away from an attack, but really you couldn't, no matter what. So like you're kind of moving around the map freely, but you're still getting hit by things no matter what. So it almost felt like a lie in the system. And I think
Mhm.
the first time I played that, that was what was the most frustrating. Because seeing an initial like gameplay video of it before it came out and like teaser trailers, I got so excited with the idea of being able to kind of freely move around and maybe avoid some attacks if possible, like get a chance to kind of, like avoid the big attacks. But
Right.
that didn't happen. So like you'd be like 20 feet away from something and it would still swing and just hit you. And it's like, okay, like I'm nowhere near this thing. So it kind of like broke the illusion for me at least. And maybe that's why like I'm not a huge fan of 12. Um, I did recently pick it up for, I believe, the Switch, so I do wanna go back into it and just
Mhm.
try it again, but, yeah, that initial playthrough for me was kind of just frustrating.
Little sidestep from this, but a game I've been playing recently has that same kind of battle system,
Mhm.
and it actually makes me want to replay 12. But Xenoblade Chronicles kind of has an active time battle system like that
Okay.
because you can freely run around. I mean, the cool thing is you can actually run away from the enemy. Like you're
Yeah.
not locked into like a little battlefield, but your auto attacks always will, you don't have to do anything about that, but you can use your skills, and when you use your skills they have a little ring that goes around it and you have to wait till it fills back up again,
Mhm.
and attacking fills it up a little bit faster.
Okay.
At first I didn't like this style. I thought it was weird because if I'm able to run around, I just want to be able to attack anytime I wanted, right?
Mhm.
That way it feels more realistic. It feels weird when you have to like wait to use your skills in kind of an action RPG setting. But now that I'm like almost done with the game, I really, really like this style, and it makes me want to go back in the 12 because I've heard like, I feel like 12 gets a lot of mixed opinions on it.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people either love the game or dislike it.
Yeah.
But
There's a few titles in the Final Fantasy series that are polared like that.
mhm.
Like Final Fantasy 8. I think is a big one for that as well.
Yeah,
Like it's really polarized just because of its own unique battle system,
I
which
liked 8, even though it's weird.
eight's cool, but it kind of goes against everything that you know about RPGs in my idea, or in my mind at
Hmm.
least. Where like the whole point is like the best way to play that game is to underlevel yourself,
Yep.
which is just it goes against everything that I know about RPGs. Because no matter what, the enemies are going to be stronger and stronger and stronger. So the idea is to keep your own personal like character level down as much as possible, which is crazy and seems really like hard for me to break that habit.
Yeah, I think I played that game when I was younger, and I remember being very confused by it, but for some reason it clicked with me once I realized like you can like make the game super easy
Hmm.
by drawing certain spells early on. I actually like 8. I don't know. I feel like I'm one of the oddballs for liking it because so many people dislike it.
Yeah, there's a lot out there, but I do. That's another one I do want to pick up and try again for sure.
It's worth it. I know it's on the Switch, so be worth a pickup.
Nice. Hey, everybody, just jumping in real quick. Just want to say, first of all, thank you for continuing listening, and obviously you're enjoying it because you've reached the middle of our episode. But before we continue on, we just wanted to remind you all that if you are truly enjoying what you're hearing and you want to learn some more about us, you can find us on social medias, and we have links in our description. And you can find me and all the drawings that I'm doing on Instagram at Kieran, and that's Keuran. What about you, Chris?
You can find me at Sloppy Cube on Instagram. That's Sloppy and Cube at the end of it. I do all retro games or just games in general, so if that's your thing, check me out. You can also message me about ideas and anything because I love talking.
Yep. We both really enjoy talking, obviously, because we are recording a podcast. So if you want to join in the conversation, please reach out to us on the Discord, and let's get right back into this episode.
For other evolutions, I haven't played this much, but I want to. World of Final Fantasy.
Mm.
It made it where it was one bar, and basically all the characters, your party, the enemies, were their little heads were on this bar,
Mm-hmm.
and when their little head would reach the top of the bar, that's when it'd be their turn.
Okay.
But obviously, it would still be going, So I feel like it's a combination of Final Fantasy X's order bar with the ATB.
Okay.
Which is kind of interesting.
That's different. Yeah.
It's one I really want to play more of because it just seems kind of cute and fun, but it also is not like pulling me in.
Right.
And then I think how Final Fantasy VII Remake
that one's
changed
interesting.
The ATB is cool. What are your thoughts on it?
I do like it a lot. I like the fact that you can kind of go back and forth between the two systems, which is really cool. And I do like the idea of the active time battle where it does slow down time, but it's still going, right? And it makes for really, really nice visuals. And it's a really clever way of doing it in a modern setting, which I think is really nice. So it's not just like your guys lined up. Like you can see the missiles coming towards you and you're like, well, shit. So it's like, okay, I need to figure out what the hell I'm going to do right now because it's coming. And you have time to think, but you don't have all day, right? So it's nice. I think that's the best way to visualize the weight system or the active time battles is that like no matter what you're doing, you're making these decisions on the fly really quickly, but you still have to make your decisions like within a certain time frame, right? Like like I just said, you don't have all day to do it. So instead of using like just straight bars to simulate that, you actually actively see the attacks incoming and the movements and whatnot. So I really enjoy that. And I do like the fact that you can freely move around in the battle area and get to a strategic point because it just feels right to do that. So I really do enjoy the new system I mean, the new take on the old system for the new
Yeah.
remake game. Because in its essence, it is the same, but it just gives you a different way of visualizing it, which is really cool. What's your thoughts on the new remake?
At first, I thought I wasn't going to like it. I thought it was going to be weird, but I ended up really enjoying it. And I wouldn't mind if that's how the rest of the Final Fantasies would be. I thought it was going to be weird and confusing like 15 was,
Hmm.
but no, like it just flowed. And I think because I was playing a lot of action RPGs at the time, like I was going through a lot of the Ys games
Mm.
when the remake came out, it felt right, and it it made switching characters fun. Like I actually usually in RPGs I just play the main character.
Yeah.
I don't experiment, which I wish I would because it's a lot of fun, but with the remake, it was fun switching to Barrett. It was fun switching to like Tifa, and like all of that. Like it was just cool. And
Hmm. Well, it gave it purpose. It gave you a reason to do so,
yeah,
which is really nice. Yeah, because like you said, 9 times out of 10, you're just going to stick with the main character and just run with them. And
hmm,
that I think that was the hardest thing for me to get used to with the remake was the idea of switching because you didn't feel like you had 100% control at all times of the characters, which
yeah,
also makes sense for like real world situations and more like that action RPG kind of set. But if
hmm,
you did encounter an enemy in which, let's say, was super far away, obviously Cloud Sword can't get to it, so you need to switch to someone long range like Barret, right?
yeah,
So it forces you to not only get better at the game, but it get better at reading the battle map and being a little bit more strategic with how you play. So, like, do you take care of the enemies real close, fast, and then switch over to Barret and kind of take your time and pick off the far range ones? Like how you approach it is very interesting, and it's cool that they give you the tools to do it that way.
yeah. I'm happy with it. As much as I have some problems with the actual story of the game, the battle system it made me really enjoy the game all the way through.
Hmm.
I'm excited to see if they keep using that for Final Fantasy 16 or if it's going to be different. Like they haven't said anything about that. So,
I think they will. It seems to be like a good system that worked out, and it feels like it's part of the same like
mhm.
universe, right? Where it's still a Final Fantasy game. Where I feel like 15 kind of went out on its own a little bit. It's still, I mean, in my opinion, it's a fun game. I beat it. It was enjoyable, but it wasn't like 100% a Final Fantasy. It was an action game that had Final Fantasy elements in it. So like relatable
Yeah.
characters and the summons and all that, which honestly, I didn't like the summons in 15. If we're going to kind of go on that a little
Yeah.
bit, because I like the ability to use the summons as I want. I don't want to have to hit a certain like quota in order for them to activate, right?
Yeah. I don't like it either.
It's a weird system to me, but I do. It's kind of like a weird. It's the other extreme as like what Final Fantasy VIII was. Final Fantasy VIII, you can just spam them like crazy, and it like basically you can just play the whole game without ever actually attacking. You just keep summoning things, right? Like it just was a constant for that one. But then you get to 15 where it's like, okay, I need to get to like this kind of attack combo or whatever it may be to hit the right stipulation for this summon. But you don't really get
Yeah.
to like pick what summon you want, right? So you have to like cater your play style in order like say, okay, fuck, I really need Titan right now. So I need to do this, this, and this. Which is interesting, but it didn't feel like Final Fantasy. So
That's why I preferred 10's version of summoning because it just felt like Pokemon at that point.
I love 10. Yeah. I think they did everything. Like that feels like a true Final Fantasy game to me still, like in a modern setting, right? And
Hmm.
I don't know. It's tough. I'm kind of torn between those two ideas because Final Fantasy X is a turn-based game, not active, right? So you
Yeah.
you kind of you get to see the turn order. And actually, real quick, I want to ask, like, what do you personally prefer? Do you prefer the active time battle system, or do you like the turn-based system more?
I'm trying to compare it to other games, how I like it in theirs. And I think deep down, turn-based
Mhm.
because if I want something more active, I'll just play an action RPG.
Mhm.
So I like the turn-based. It's fun thinking of different strategies and stuff like without having to stress out about time.
Yeah.
What about you?
I'm the same way. I do prefer the turn-based battle systems more than the active time, but I think that comes more from my roots as far as like gaming goes, and not just video
Mm.
games, but just my ideas of games. Like I love playing chess, so being able to think about the move sets beforehand, and like I love seeing the turn order and trying to figure out like, okay, well, like if I do this, they have 2 turns ahead of me before I can react again. Am I at the right HP? Is this the right move? But if I do this move, it kind of pushes them back in the turn order. And I like those kind of thoughts and seeing things kind of like fleshed out like that.
Mhm.
But I mean, there is good points to the active time battle system where it's fun, it's fast paced, it's just like go, go, go. And you still get that same like strategy phases, but you have to be a little quicker in it. But like you said, it almost feels like I might as well just play an action game
Yeah.
at that point. But it is really fun. And I think for me at least, when I play games, it's more of like a zen mode. Like I'm never really like amped when I play games, and I don't
Mhm.
like getting that like overstimulated feeling, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, like I've always been that way, I guess. That's why I don't really like first person shooters because I don't like being like that like right like that like in it where it's just like, oh
Yeah.
my god, oh my god, oh my god. Like I don't like that feeling
So you
for
don't like Doom, like Eternal, something fast-paced like that?
It's fun, but I can only play it for like an hour before my brain's just like, I'm done. Like I'm overstimulated. I need to just stop. And like that
Yeah.
happened with Halo too. But it's funny, like when it comes back to like let's say Smash Brothers, I can play that for hours and I'm fine.
Hmm.
But I think it's a different there's a difference between those kind of styles of games where like with like first person shooters or like Doom Eternal, like it's 100% just go, 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 go. But
Yeah.
in Smash, there's a lot of like just straight fighting and just go fast and figure things out. But there is a sense of kind of like strategy to it as well, where it's like, okay, well, I'm fighting this guy. I know his move sets. I can do this, this, and this to counter, right? Or like look out for
Mhm.
this. So I think that's the difference where like I can turn on my strategy side of my brain in that kind of a style. Whereas with like Call of Duty or something like that or PUBG, there is none of that for me. It's just straight, like, high strung for way too long, and then I'm just burnt. I'm like, "I need to stop."
I'm thinking about that whole, like that feeling you get when you're, like, saying, like, "I never feel amped up," and there's, like, times where I do get it,
Mhm,
and that the one time I did, I tried to play Doom Eternal, and that's why I brought it up
mhm.
because, dude, that game, like, overwhelmed me at one point, like, I was just, like, playing and, like, everything's on the screen and it's coming at me, and I'm like, "Oh my god, like, this is, like, too much for me right now." Like, I had to sit down for a second, pause it, and just be like,
Yeah,
I need to think of a way to like you have to be quick, right? Because there's obviously areas you can jump to where you're safe, and it's just like, whoa, like
yeah.
it's overwhelming at times, you know. I mean, I don't want to say this as I'm getting older because I do love fast paced stuff, but it's nice having that sit down thing,
Mhm,
what you want to do.
yeah.
It's just I don't know. I enjoy it.
I think it's more stimulating for your brain, and in the long run, it's better for your brain too, to be able to have like, think about it as like a logic puzzle rather than
Hmm.
just pure reaction. Because, I mean, pure reaction's really good for twitch reflexes and things like that, but I feel like you can't really equate that to anything in real world situations. Whereas, like, let's say you play a lot of puzzle games. Well, I mean, puzzle games have been shown to even help out Alzheimer's patients and
Yep.
able to retain more information longer. And like, what that's kind of how I approach gaming in general now, especially as we're getting older too. Like, my Twitch reflexes, I don't need that in my life, right? Like, that's not going to really help me out with much of anything. But if I can become a better, like, logical thinker, then that's going to have long term benefits for me as well. So, I mean, I don't know, maybe that's just how my brain works. Like I love learning. I'm more of like a scholar side of it or mentality.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where those kind of games have always been more interesting to me, at least, rather than
Interesting.
like the more fast paced, like hardcore, like, oh, like League of Legends or whatever. It's just like, it's just too much. I'm just like, okay, like I get it. It's enjoyable. It is fun. But I mean, that's the same thing too. Like last episode, you mentioned how much I enjoy card games. It's that same idea. And I think that's why I really love turn-based games is the fact that like Hearthstone and things like that, I love those games because I can read a strategy. I can think things out. And obviously there's a timer, so you need to be like somewhat fast with your decisions. You can't sit there all day. But
Yeah.
it it's more enjoyable for me to like lay out a big move and then just set that move off. Or even if that move gets blocked, like that's still really fun to me because it's like, oh shit, I didn't even think about that potential strategy to stop this. This is really cool. Like that's where like the right amount of stimulation for me at least. And that's where I feel good.
Holy shit! I'm sorry.
Did you
I
have
cut
any
this
other
out for a
notes as far
second.
as
I was
ATB?
Yeah, I was just gonna say something and I totally blanked out for a second. Oh my god. Oh, do you hear me at all?
Oh, you're going robot. I think I lost you.
Yeah, that was weird. My connection was dropping.
I can
I'm
hear you.
still recording though.
Okay.
You hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
So
I can just cut all that out.
yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I think all I just I just
I
asked if you had
was
any other notes or an extension on that because I didn't hear anything after what I said.
actually gonna ask because
Mhm.
you were talking about kind of like shooting and like slower pace. Have you ever played Super Hot?
I haven't, but I have watched it, and that looks like a game that I could get into because that feels like
Mm-hmm.
it will. It's quick pace, but then all of a sudden you have that moment of like, here's the moves I need to do. Like you can see the things coming, and it feels strategy based, which is really interesting to me. So I would be really excited to play that game actually.
Yeah, I beat it maybe a few days ago, and it was a lot more fun than I thought it would be.
Hmm.
I was surprised because it's like like things move very, very slowly unless you actually move. And some of the stages needed so much strategy. I was like, wow, it felt weird for a shooter, and it was super cool.
Yeah.
I definitely enjoyed that style of play.
I want to play that one, and there's that other RPG game with guns. What was that one? That like weird one. I feel like we've talked about it before in the past too, but like it's like Final
Guns.
Fantasy with guns, where you can run around on the map, you strategize, and there's even like jumping through the air and shooting, and it goes in slow mo. But it's a full RPG game. I can't remember what it was.
Resonance of Fate?
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one.
No.
And
Oh, that is?
I think
Oh,
so.
shit.
I think that's the one, right? That sounds right.
Yeah, that's the one with shooting.
Where
I never played it though.
let me look it up real quick.
I remember you telling me about that game before that you wanted to play it.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's interesting because I never hear many people talk about it.
Yeah, that's definitely the game. So Resonance of Fate, like it feels like a shooter game that I can get into. Like that looks interesting to me because I mean, in the core sense of it, it's not really like a shooter game. It's more just straight RPG game. But
Right.
the battle system looks interesting to me, and I feel like that's definitely one that it's a little bit of a faster pace, a little different pacing that I could potentially really sink some time into. And yeah, I don't know, I like that stuff. But I mean, this is also the guy who's saying that like Journey and Shadow of the Colossus are my favorite games because of what it does for your heart rate and the downtime and all that. Like I'm not the best judge of first person shooter games by far. Like I can't play them. I suck at them and my brain just doesn't work that fast. So
I feel like there's a lot of good first person shooters out there, but it's like you don't really hear about them too often. So it's like all you ever hear about is Call of Duty and all of that. So it's like
Yeah.
And I mean, if it's a lot of them are pretty fast paced, so it does make it kind of difficult if that's not what you're into.
Yeah. I mean, at Call of Duty, I hate the fact the last time I played it is like, as soon as you spawn, you're dead. And it's like, all right, this is
Get
fun.
good.
Yeah. Right. Or just one shot from nowhere. It's like, all right, that was fun, I guess. Let me play for another 10 hours and maybe I'll stay alive for 30 minutes or something, right? Like it just, I don't know. Something about that just doesn't seem really appealing to me.
Yeah, that's like something I'll fire up like once every couple months for like an hour or two, and then I'm like, yep, well, I got my fill. I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah. See, yeah.
But kind of wrapping up on this, I actually found that there were different patents of the active time battle, and they were both created by Akihiko Matsu, and the first one was for Chrono Trigger, and it was just called Active Time Battle version 2.
Okay.
Because I mean, it did have the active bars that looked just like it, and I mean, it basically played the same way, but a little bit differently.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're able to kind of, your character runs around the screen. I guess it really brought that, like, I'm trying to think of the name, like the cross, like the chaining attacks.
Yeah,
you know,
like that was the first one I played that allowed you to actually like combo attacks, which was really cool.
It.
Yeah, so like that's what I always liked about with the active time battles, and I always felt like I waited for it anyway, was like stringing together attacks, even in games that don't allow stringing or it doesn't do anything. Like you feel better whenever you have like 3 attacks lined up and you have them like waiting in the bank, right? Where it's like, okay, well, like I'm gonna hit with this one, and then I already know I'm gonna hit with this one. But I wonder if that's more like gearing it back towards a turn-based style system for me in my head, and like kind of tricking my brain into thinking that this active time battle is more turn-based right now. But I do really like the way that Chrono Trigger did that, the combo attacks. It's great.
I think Chrono Trigger is what actually made me enjoy active time battle, because I didn't play Chrono Trigger till like I was maybe late in my teens. So it was after I played all like the newer Final Fantasies and I was like over that system. I think that was the game that got me into it. But he also created real-time battle system, which is basically the system used in Final Fantasy 11 and 14, like the MMOs, basically.
Right.
So, I mean, that's a little different, but it's interesting how they really had like 2-3 people working on these different battle systems, and they've kind of just been there creating them. Like it's interesting. Like it's not like it's a bunch of different people.
Yeah, that is cool. Real time feels more like Western RPGs to me.
Exactly. It's definitely that style. And I mean, now that I've played so many JRPGs in general, it's like you can really see the influence of active time battle in games. Like I think most Japanese action RPGs are like they take a lot of style from it, right? Like with the skill cooldowns and stuff like that.
Right.
Like, you know, I think about it. Well, ease is not the best thing because, I mean, you can just kind of spam your skills whenever you want. But there are other RPGs out there where it's like you run around, you do your basic attack, but then, you know, your skills are on such a long cooldown, it feels like you're waiting for those dumb little meters to fill.
Yeah, and that gets frustrating.
Yeah, like that feels more of a tease to me than the normal basic bar system in the Final Fantasy games.
Yeah, I agree. Agreed. Do you have anything else in your notes?
No, that's it. That's all of it.
Okay. Is there anything else that would be good to like close it on? Or I think we kind of hit our conclusions.
I think we did.
Okay. Well, actually, yeah. Okay. I'm going to ask you a question. Let's do that.
Okay.
All right. So we've gone through a lot of different examples of what an active time battle system is, the turn-based systems, kind of like comparing and contrasting the two of them. But I want to ask, like, what is your all-time favorite active time battle game? Or actually just, not just game, because it could just be your favorite game, but like what game had your favorite system in it, or your battle system?
Ooh. I mean, this is kind of going into like the deeper mechanics of the gameplay in general, but I mean, Final Fantasy VI, just the summon system with leveling it up, like all the magic system in general, and it was just it. I don't know. It just felt right for that game. You know, the only other Final Fantasy I really enjoyed the active time battle was probably 9.
Yeah, that was gonna be mine as well. 9 is one of my favorites as far as battle system and gameplay, everything about that game. I think that one's like one of the more like hidden gems of the Final Fantasy series, and it's one of those that also gets polarized. But I think that's mainly for the characters. But I love that game.
Yeah, I think it's definitely the characters and maybe some of the setting. Like, I don't know. There's a lot of people like it, but there's a lot of hate for it too. And I'm just like, I don't really understand the hate for it.
Yeah, I've never really got that. It's a great game. I think it's really enjoyable. But yeah. All right, well, I think that's going to do it for us this week. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode on active time battles. If you liked our little discussion here on something a little bit more specific, rather than just a actual just like game, but a little bit more broader, actual game mechanic, then you're in luck because we are going to be going over some more episodes that deal with game mechanic specific, because I think that's going to be really fun to go into.
Oh yeah,
talking more about like just game designy stuff, some pillars, some basics, kind of get to go back to my old studies of game design because I haven't really used it in about a year after graduating. Thank you, World Situations. It's been a little hard to actually do all that stuff, but it's been fun to look back and really give a little bit more of a deep dive on a specific mechanic itself. But yeah, so if you really enjoyed that, make sure to check us out on all of the socials. We have the links in the description show notes. We have our link tree available there, so you can find us on everything. Sign up on the Discord or join the Discord, join in the conversation with us. There's been a lot more active people lately, and that's really awesome to see. So thank you guys so much for that. Share with a friend, because that's the best way that we get out there and we get more fans, right? More people to talk about.
Yeah.
So if you enjoy it, please share it. And if you share it, make sure to tag us and we will send personal thank yous to you as well. So thank you very much, you guys, for everything. Thank you for listening. And that's going to do it for this week. So, bye.